A chunk of plaster falls from the ceiling, thudding onto the kitchen tiles as caution tape from the half-demolished wall whips loose. The frame nailed to the stud flips face down in the debris. Its cracked glass now reveals the back of the photo, a single hand-scrawled note stuck clumsily to cardboard. "Do not build back." Why would someone plan that warning before the demolition even began? Tate wipes his palm on his jeans as he kneels beside the fallen plaster, methodically scraping grout dust into a shallow heap with the trowel's edge. Nora stands at the sink, rinsing her coffee mug with water from the jug that's been untouched since morning, her back to the wrecked wall. The tape fluttering from the exposed stud catches the dusk light. But the rest of the kitchen hums with routine survival. The refrigerator's low drone, the pantry door settling with a creak. The clock's second hand clicking off another beat. He slides the note toward her on a strip of bent cardboard. She lifts it, doesn't ask about the phrasing, only stalks to the counter where she wipes the cracked tile with a clean rag. Outside, the gravel driveway settles under the unused equipment, and the neighbor's dog barks twice, then stops, remembering the limits of their world. No one speaks of the old frame now face down. They know what unspoken hurts sound like, and the silence stays steady, almost domestic. The demolition crew's boots shuffle once, twice, and then they're back to routine, measuring, scratching, carrying out the plaster that still gives way. Everything moves as always. Slow, practical, careful. The single bulb in the basement flickers as Maya and Elias descend the steps, each carrying a metal bucket of screws and a crate of dusty jars. The concrete floor is split by the gray partition stretching from ceiling to floor, a wall of plywood and stubborn silence. Elias sets his bucket down and runs a hand flat along the rough surface. "It's real," he says, tracing a seam. Maya doesn't answer with words. She slides a screwdriver into the joint and pries loose a warped board until a narrow crack opens. Dust falls like a whisper. A slit forms at shoulder height. Maya slips a piece of paper through, tucking it into Elias's waiting palm. He reads aloud, voice tight. "You said once we needed a wall so guilt wouldn't spill out." Maya hits the wall with the heel of her hand, just hard enough to make it tremble. "The walls were built to avoid the pain of past betrayals," she says, breath bumping against the wood. "Not to keep us unaware that they exist." Elias swallows, eyes fixed on the note she gave him. A faded photograph taped with notes in her handwriting. He squares his shoulders and lifts his palm again, pressing it flat against the gap. His fingers tremble. "I could break it down," he hisses, planting both fists on the plywood. It shudders under their weight. Maya grabs his wrists between the gap and the rest of the wall. The warmth of her grip shocks the silence. "Breaking it won't bring that trust back," she says, and her voice cracks around the words. Elias's jaw flexes. He pulls back, but his knuckles stay pressed to the barrier, a low, ragged breath escaping. Then he leans forward, forehead almost touching the wood, and murmurs, "So, what do we do with it?" Maya slides the screwdriver sideways, widening the slit. She reaches through and places her palm lightly against his. He doesn't pull away. The tension in his shoulders eases fractionally. "Write me," she says. And the first sentence she gives him is a small victory. A list of the nights she spent downstairs, candles guttering while she counted the hours he ignored calls. Elias nods so sharply, the light above seesaws. He pushes another scrap of paper through the slot, this one filled with date after date of the promises he broke. It's an ugly ledger, but he slides it gently, as if it were the only thing that could fit between them. They start with that, a schedule of notes, a pen in the wall's mouth, a shared cup of water set at the base on either side. Each exchange is a mini payoff. Honesty without pretense, a line like, "I saw the slip where Mom scrawled our names. I kept it in case you ever wanted it back." Maya nods, closing her fingers around his through the narrow opening, then letting go. The wall remains, solid and stubborn, but the gap now carries their words. They've admitted the barrier is real and why it exists. And in doing so, they've let a few of the old pains escape with the notes, making the air between them just a little clearer. Mara presses her palm against the rough edge of the gap, feeling the vibration of Jay's thumb drumming on the other side. Light leaks through now, enough for the narrow beam of the desk lamp she nudged to shine a thin line across his cheek. She slides the new note through. "We never hear the same thing," she scribbles. The wall distorts every story. Jay reads it, his mouth twisting, then leans close enough that his breath grazes the timber. "I know," he says, loud enough for the gap to catch every syllable. "And I know it's not because you stopped trying. It's because I stopped letting you in after the betrayal, and the wall gave me an excuse." His fingers curl around the corner of the wood, knuckles white. "We kept pretending it was safer than facing how much we hurt each other." He shoves the note back with a new line. "The wall turned every misstep into proof we were monsters to one another." Mara catches the paper before Jay can snatch it away and pushes the cup of water closer to the opening. She tips it, letting a bead trickle along the gap so he can feel the coolness. "It dries the same on both sides," she says, "but we let the dry spots become proof of absence instead of places where the water can soak through." Jay grabs a pen, the one they agreed to keep at hand, and writes in a shakier hand. "I know the walls felt like shields, but they starved us. Every conversation turns into a scavenger hunt for meaning now." The beam of light flickers as Mara taps the lamp, a deliberate jerk sending the shadow of the split wall dancing across Jay's forearm. Tension crackles in the way his jaw clenches before he speaks again. "Tell me what you remember," he says. "Not what the wall tells you I remember. Tell me what you saw when you slammed the door, what you felt when I left that note." Mara swallows, but her next note comes faster, ink smudging because her hand trembles. "I remember you saying we were supposed to be safer without each other. I remember thinking you meant it like a sentence. That's what keeps me from staying." In the gap, silence wedges between their words, but the air feels thinner. Jay recognizes the pattern, and instead of retreating, he slides the pen back toward her. He pushes the gap wider with one hand, scraping the splinters they pried earlier. The board shifts another inch, enough for Mara to slip her fingers inside, and once her nails meet his, she doesn't pull away. She lets the dampness of the spilled water drip onto his wrist, and they both flinch at the cold reminder of what the wall had done. Slowed them down, misread their own moves, made every whisper look like a fight. Jay draws a breath through clenched teeth and says, "We can't keep pretending this partition didn't ruin how we translated each other. The pain is there because of what we let it do." Mara nods, her thumb running along his bruised knuckles. "Then we stop pretending. We keep making the gap wider, not for comfort, but so the next note has fewer lies hiding in it." The payoff flickers as they brush the same surface, a small, shared gesture of contact that feels like a treaty. They aren't back where they were before the betrayals, but the new light hitting Jay's face proves there is more to see now, even if the wall still stands. The conversation continues. The notes still travel, but the low hum of chronic misunderstanding now has a counterpoint, acknowledgement, and the thought of doing it again tomorrow holds the strange flush of hope. The board still sits half loosened, but now Mara presses the end of it with the heel of her palm, levering the gap another centimeter while Noah keeps tension in his fingers around the cup of water. They've already spilled enough to drench the floor. This time, Mara tips her shoulders so the board doesn't slam back, letting the sliver of air widen just enough for her whole arm to feel its edges. "Keep your hand ready," she murmurs. Noah pushes the pen through again, the ink tip wobbling with a tremor in Mara's grip. No note waits on the other side. Instead, Noah's thumb hovers over the paper and he says, "I wrote it in the dark." He slides the paper through, then cracks his knuckles and reaches for the cup, letting it wait. Mara snatches the note, and her nose flares as she reads, "I watched you go through your backpack once after you were gone, trying to see if there were letters you never let me read. I told you to stay away, because I didn't want you seeing how scared I was of being blamed again." Mara doesn't respond immediately. Her mouth pulls tight, a silent exhale that shakes the paper against her palm. She flips to the blank side and writes, "When your laughter died out after the phone call from school, I stopped answering the door because I knew my own voice would crack. I told myself silence was safer than another fight." She slides that note back, and when Noah reads it, his fingers curl around the cup like it might slip into the wall. He pushes the cup through, then pushes a tentative hand in, fingertips brushing Mara's knuckles. Mara hisses, but doesn't pull away. "It burns," she whispers, her voice barely carrying. "But I need to feel it." Noah meets her palm, pressing harder until their pulses bump against each other. "Tell me something that hurt you," Mara says, eyes on the gap. "Tell me so I stop pretending I know everything." She doesn't wait for the note. Noah's lips part, and he pushes a breath through the wall, air that smells like dusty paper and sweat. "I told Mom you broke her vase," he says, "because she was screaming, and I wanted it to end. I knew you'd take the blame." Water sloshes over the rim as his hand trembles, spilling droplets down the partition. Mara catches a few with her thumb, watching them bead and drip. Her head lowers until her hair brushes her shoulder, and she grips the gap again. "I believed you," she whispers, "and I stopped talking to you because I thought I deserved it." Her jaw clenches. She smooths the board with her palm. "I don't want to build more rooms between us. But I'm scared of what will happen if I lay all this in front of you." Noah lets their fingers rest together, then lifts his hand, fingers tightening, holding her gaze through the board. "Then don't lay it all out at once," he says, pushing the cup back. "Give me one hurt at a time." Mara exhales sharply and releases the board, letting it settle with a soft thud. The gap remains the same width, but now there is a puddle of water between them where the cup set down. Shimmering, she slides her hand back toward him, not through the hole but against it, pressing her palm to the edge like a promise. "I'll keep giving you pieces," she says, and this time her voice doesn't shake. Noah nods, thumb brushing her knuckles. "I'll keep listening," he replies, and when he reaches for the cup again, it doesn't feel like an offer of forgiveness. It feels like the next step in a dangerous, necessary climb. Mara slides down until her shoulder presses against the rough edge of the gap. Her palm finds the loose board again, and, with Noah's fingers braced behind it, she shoves. The crack scrapes open another half-inch. Nail grit tumbles into the dust. Noah doesn't crane back the way he used to when confrontation started. He stays close, breathing evenly, eyes on Mara's hand instead of his own defense. She smooths her fingers over the new opening, then fishes the shared pen from the sill. Her handwriting wobbles, but stays legible. "You begged Mom not to yell," she writes. "You told me I broke the vase. You held that like armor." She slides the pen through, watching Noah read with the steady focus he's been practicing. Noah's lips part. He pushes the pen back with a single finger. I said it because I didn't know how to keep us both quiet. He writes, each letter landing right in the gap. No one told me how to hold the noise down without pushing your way out. He holds the board with one hand, while the other rests flat against Mara's wrist, showing he can support the wall without using it to shut her out. Mara lifts the pen again. This time, her message takes a breath. I believed you. So I folded myself flat and shut the door. I felt safer with silence than with a voice. That hurt both of us. The pen taps Noah's side of the gap once, and she whispers, I'm tearing my own boards down with you. Noah doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he reaches for the small cup of water and tips a few drops through the crack. The liquid hits Mara's palm in a cold speckle. She blinks, pulls the hand back, and grins. Sharp, a little wild. Don't drown me, she says out loud. Just keep the drip, the proof that you're still here. He grins too, then presses his forehead against the wall, matching her position on the other side. You're the only one who's ever let me see that when I went quiet. It scared you, he says, soft enough to keep the board steady. I'm not adding a wall. I'm starting with the plank between us, and I'll take it down if you keep pointing to the splinters. The board wobbles again. Mara reaches under to brace it, pushing from her side so it won't slam back. Neither of them steps away this time. Noah slides his other hand through the gap and, for the first time since they started this, lets their fingers curl around one another's in a tentative grip. He doesn't pull back mid-grip. She doesn't yank away. The small squeeze, the warmth through the splintered wood, feels like a compromise. Their honesty exchanging blows with old instincts to shield. Then Mara dives for the wiped-out knot of chalk dust near the gap and whispers, If we keep doing this, the wall will fall because we decided honesty was safer than pretending. She taps the board twice for emphasis. No defenses, just us saying what happens. Noah nods once. I can say I was wrong about you, he breathes, the board humming with the pressure. I can say it right now. He writes it down, slides the pen over, and holds her gaze while she reads it. The tension in his shoulders eases. She exhales, letting her palms rest flat against the wall, fingers still wrapped around his. A small quiet blooms. But it isn't silence. It is the slow breath of two people learning to weigh truth heavier than the urge to defend. Mara's hand drifts upward along the wood, easing a plank loose from the groove with trembling strength. Noah matches each tug with his own. The first real light of day leaks through the widening crack, not a door opening yet, but the sense of movement. When a chunk finally comes free, neither of them jumps or recoils. They keep their hands on the gap, steady and very much present. The studs in the half-finished wall rattle as Mara leans her shoulder against them and pushes. The gap widens another inch, and the board leans into Noah's side, pressing against his shoulder instead of acting as a barrier. He doesn't let go. He matches the pressure, fingers brushing hers, and the wood rocks forward enough for Mara to slide a hand around it. Dust motes swim in the yellow light. Her palm comes through the opening and curls around his wrist. He doesn't pull back. Take it, Mara says, breath ragged, and she shoves a glass marble through the gap. It rolls along the concrete floor and stops against Noah's foot. He picks it up with both hands, thumbs rubbing where the cool glass pinches his skin, then sets it in a dish of water on his side. The ripple rolls toward her, reaching her fingertips. She dips her own fingers in, submerges them to the knuckles, and lifts them so the water slides through the gap and drips onto his palm. I tore the note earlier, Noah says, throat thick. He holds up the damp paper, edges frayed. I remember the corners you used to fold for luck. I kept the piece with the elephant. Mara's hand slips lower, pressing her palm flat against his like sending warmth through the board. A tremor runs through her shoulder. I thought you'd done it on purpose, she murmurs. I convinced myself you wanted her mad, and I hid behind the wall because it hurt too much to tell you. Noah stares at the marble in the dish. I never wanted that, he whispers. I just got tired of defending, and the wall seemed easier. I told myself, he chokes, that staying quiet was safer. He wrenches the smashed note into smaller pieces, matches Mara's breathing, and slides the scraps through. I'm handing them back. We can burn them or tape them. I'll leave them there. But I want you to see I did it on purpose when I opened this. Mara's fingers curl around his thumb. Her nails scrape the grain of the board, leaving shallow crescents. We promised to stay here, she says, voice low. I know we hurt ourselves when we ran away. She drags her other hand across the wall, letting it rest on Noah's forearm. The act of touching his skin through the gap becomes more than proof. It becomes an offering. He leans his forehead against the plank, surrendering to the contact instead of recoiling. A loud creak slices through the tension as the loosened board slips farther, and Mara's hand tenses reflexively. Noah steadies it with his own, palms flat, and then pushes it wider by a half-inch. The space is enough for their wrists to sit side by side, but not wide enough to let the board fall. We can't stop now, she says. Her voice shakes, but she keeps her eyes level with his. Mara's fingers trace the indentation, and she slides her hand beneath his to rest it flat against his wrist. Noah lets the board lean back against him, not as a defense, but as a shared frame. The gap remains half a hand wide, but now it bears their fingerprints together on the wood. A new proof that following the hurt with one another kept the wall from snapping shut again. The water in the dish settles. Mara blinks toward the ceiling light, then toward Noah. Keep the cup, she says, and keep your hand there. He moves his arm, settling his palm over hers. I'm not letting go, he says. The board shifts again, but this time it stays balanced between them, no longer needing to be pried open. The solidarity feels fragile and firm. Another inch gained not through force, but through choosing to stay in the shared space. Noah keeps his forearm flat against the board as Mara probes another seam with a thin screwdriver they saved from the garage. She rocks the bit a breath, letting the metal sing a higher pitch each time the gap grows. I'm not doing this just to take the easy way out, she mutters, pushing the strip until a sliver of light runs through the crack. Accountability isn't a one-off when you screw a board back in place later. I'll keep pulling these truths out with you. He exhales, the board shuddering under her palm. I meant what I wrote earlier. No more deflecting on the vase. I'll tell you where I went, what I felt even when it sucks. His fingers find the cup of water wedged on the ledge and lift it toward her. And I'm doing the check-in tonight, tomorrow, however long it takes. No more shutting you out to dodge the hard part. Mara takes the cup, the cold glass sweating, and slides a folded note through the gap. On the other side, his thumb catches the paper mid-air, and he reads aloud. Wednesday, before dinner, we each share one thing we slipped up on and how we fix it. As soon as the words leave his mouth, the board, only half supported by the loosened plank, leans sideways. Noah lunges, grabbing the nearest book stack, throwing it under the wobbling edge before Mara can blink. The plank steadies, the tumble prevented, and in the flat silence that follows, her breath hits once, then eases. This path is still fragile, Mara says, eyes steady on his, cupping the note again. But I'm staying on it. Noah threads his fingers through the gap, brushing hers, the skin-on-skin contact tiny but enough to anchor them both. He taps the board twice with his knuckles, a quiet promise. I won't be the one to close it again. She nods, letting her knuckles rest there for a beat before pulling away, leaving the gap wide enough for the paper and their little chaos of plans to slip through. They leave the screwdriver dangling between them, a shared tool now set to hold the new schedule in place. Dusk braids itself through the widened split, making a ribbon of dust motes that catch their fingertips. The last board, balanced on their palms, trembles before it falls, and they let it slide sideways. Not to seal the breach, but to set it aside together. The cups of water rest on each sill, greenish glass warm from their hands, the pens sleeping beside them like quiet vows. Mara presses the damp marble through, letting it nestle against Noah's palm, and he slides back a note where the ink still shines, a new sentence promising to keep the air between them clear, to keep the confession safe. They keep their palms against the gap, fingers laced through the small span, and when the plank threatens to lean, Noah settles a stack of books beneath, a steady breath of cooperation. They murmur about how the wall bruised them, how every defensive curl cost weeks of laughter. And instead of pretending those bruises never happened, they trace them with gentle thumbs, turning the hurt into a map of care. The check-ins stay, a soft rhythm before supper, each evening a new note confessing some failure and offering a mended thought. They spill the water again, a tiny flood that makes the marble wobble and sends a smile through both of them, a reminder of shared presence and a promise to keep leaking honesty forever. The gap stays open, sunlight slipping in, and they understand, without saying it aloud, that nothing can put that wall back the way it once stood.